Happy Monday Eve. It is officially Monday Eve. When you understand that darkness comes before the light, and the only location that you can be in to start the universal day in the night, in the eve of that day, which has universally been started as Monday, as the sun set here in the West Coast, in the Western Sunset Land, it began Monday once it passed the Hawaiian and islands, heading into the Negros Islands of the Philippines and Papua New Guinea, and those locations, beginning the new day when it's Monday Eve here. So today is the evening of the first day. So in the scriptures, when it says, and it was the first day, you understand the evening right now, land before time. So the universal clock of 24 hours began. Understand why they call midnight midnight. Once the sun sets here in the west, which should be around 6 o'clock, usually if we are on scheduled time. If you were observing the sun and allowing the sun to tell the time, the sunset would be at 6 o'clock. And at midnight, it would be 6 a.m. in the eastern hemisphere of the new day. So midnight technically should be 6 a.m. Monday evening in the eastern hemisphere, in a location where the sun has risen. And understand when the timing and how it goes in 12 a.m., right, noon, 6 a.m., 24 hours, it is set here again in the west. Understand the rotation of 360 degrees. So this is why darkness comes before the light, and why the new year is sometimes looked at in September, in autumn. When you understand darkness comes before the light, the path to death begins before the birth or the path to life. When you understand that darkness comes before the light, in the beginning, right, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Right, God spoke the sound, sonic booms, subwoofers, subwaves, that energy from the water, right, forms the crystals, forms all kind of formations, right, from sound, photography, the capturing of light. Light, sound forms out of sound, light, right? You can speak light, literally, and you can speak life, and you can speak death. This is the power. This is the power, right? Blessings and cursings. This is what we can do. This is why things have to be in their proper context and their connotation to understand their denotation. Because vernacular changes things. For instance, a day, right, can mean a lot of different things, right? We understand day can also refer to death. We understand divas and the dawn and the golden light, the golden, right? The honey, the bar, Deborah, milk and honey. Understand the land of milk and honey. When we talk about the land before time, and understanding darkness, and understanding why some say the new year is in autumn, the path to death, and then the spring, right, is the beginning of life, new life. And that is two calendars. There was two ways of documenting. There was solar and there was lunar, right? So when you understand before the light, right, the light existed before the sun, right? And if you read in the scriptures, it tells you that the sun wasn't developed until a certain time. We understand the calculation of seasons and having to go through the seasons in order for it to be officially an annual year. So you understand the year, and the calculation of years was done by the moon and the stars, right? And then the sun was the chronicler of time. So the sun was the beginning of the chronicler of time, but the sun was to be seen to be sprung in the Orient, right, in the east, leaving the darkness, the Western Hemisphere, the New World, right, before time. It's what made the new world before time. It was that the ancient were before the sprouting of the sun. At least this is how they talk, because the circle has no beginning or no end. Right? So the way that the duat, the dividing and the measuring of the opposites was taught through science and shapes and forms and sexuality. It wasn't pornographic. It was precise design, architect. Right? And we understand the square and the circle is the same thing. 490-degree angles, 360 degrees. Right? The circle can form into anything with equalness, with wholeness. It's perfect. So the earth was seen to be created perfect, right? So the teachings of it was a teaching of the seas. So when you see all these stories about the ocean and the Pacific and the volcanoes and the Tower of Babel and the earth was one and these submerged continents, you'll find evidence within the Ring of Fire about the subduction of the tectonic plates, and proof and evidence of this outside of Tokyo. Right? You'll see the remains of ruins, underwater ruins, even in the Atlantic, all due to this volcanic arc, as they call it. When you understand the divisions of the hemispheres, the dividing between the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, see how those oceans are divided there at the southern horn of Africa, right? The dividing of the moon from the daylight, right? Understand Adam's calendar and a lot of these things that exist there in southern Africa, and these stories and these tellings, these things are ancient stories explaining the existence, the duat of life, right? And these systematic processes that explain shapes and the operation of the elements, develop alchemy, develop arithmetic, algorithms, data, intel, information, predictions, probability, right? All of that can be observed now to where you can program, compute, right? All of these things, right? So we face a problematic, systematic agenda that's based in eugenics, right? Trying to stop the procreation, right? Whether it's through homosexuality or oversexuality, right? The structure, the family structure, right? The balance, the triangle, the tripod, the triad, right? That's been destroyed. So understanding the Earth's 360 degrees rotation, and you understanding that you are the elemental bodies formed in a breathing soul, right? I wish I could see the stars right now, right? But life is forever turning, cycling, rotating, revolving, never ending. So death was the hardest thing to explain the existence of. So we look at death and the fear of death and the fear of dying. This land where the sun would die became the center of religious cults known around the world. Men would come here to hear from men stories. In way they paid millions and millions of dollars for the entertainers and things that exist to this day. The same process, the same systematic process was going on. They always have paid and came all the way across seas to hear the men of ancient, right? The ancient men, the men that lived in the land of the immortals, right? Understand when men would come from Asia over into the Pacific, across the Pacific, they come back in time. They lose a day. They was like they was going back to Neverland, never dying. So we was looked at as the immortals and living forever, the wise ones coming from the east, right? Tomorrowland, we could see tomorrow. Understand that. Like that's something that can't be That alone was phenomenal. That's something that can't be replicated anywhere else within the earth. So this became the center. All right, the Americas, the Americas, the rock and roll music, right? Worship. It all started from the pain and the fear of death. Every culture feared death, right? But understanding the seasons and knowing that there's a springing, right? When you look at spring and the rebirth and all of that, we never talk about the newborn or the origins of all existence. It's always, when we look at the beginnings of everything that exists, it starts from sperm, right? Water, seed. So we talk about sperm, water, seed, right? It forms inside of a woman and becomes a breathing, living being. And this cycle goes and goes and goes. So the laws of attraction between man and woman and creation is damn near robotic, right? But when you understand it's an agenda to stop the procreation of dominant genes and traits, right? And it's sick. It's sickening. It's a healthcare issue. It's millions and millions of people suffer from psychological disorders, behavioral, all a part of this agenda. And when you talk about being reparated, identified, being made whole, not being a minority, nobody wanna deal with that. Niggas is comfortable in the system. Niggas is comfortable with where they at. They getting money. So what's the matter? Niggas, bitches ain't tripping about a nigga status, right? So the process don't stop. It don't stop with it, And who's going to restore or even attempt to restore and accept, right, the debt and the amount of financial input that it's going to take to even have an impact on the agendas of eugenics, Planned Parenthood, the prison system. Who's going to pay these district attorneys, these judges, if there's no criminals, right? It's all business. Everything's business. It don't matter if you got cash, Bitcoin, whatever. You are the stock. The United States don't need no damn gold. You are the gold. Melanin worth way more than gold. Nigga, we are the stock. We are the cattle. We are the sheep in this motherfucker. So niggas talk about worrying about the system falling. Nigga, they got the slaves. Nigga, they got the money. We're talking about some of the greatest paid people under contract you can name. They all under contract under some type of allegiance. So niggas need to wake up, man, and either see, 12 hours later, Monday's sun finally has crossed over into the western hemisphere. So as Monday's sun has finally crossed over to the western hemisphere, it is now daylight here in the west. For 12 hours we will be experiencing this Monday sun. After the sun sets, it'll officially be Tuesday evening, Tuesday Eve. So this is how the western sunset land here in America is the land before time. When you understand darkness comes before the light. As we see the sun approaching, for the next 12 hours we will be experiencing day until the beginning of the new day, which begins with the sun setting. As you can see here, that the pendulum of darkness, 180 degrees of darkness and 180 degrees of light, has revolved, rotated. Now darkness is heading, Monday evening is now heading into the eastern hemisphere. You understand? It's not Tuesday evening in the eastern hemisphere right now. It's Monday night. Like clockwork. That shit work. To understand, the sun has to come into the west end as it leaves the region of the Indian Ocean and comes across into the Atlantic, into the Karabah. The Kara. This is where the Quran, right? The calling and the weeping in the morning. Tammuz. Tamerica. The beloved land. Alright, so you understand the beloved land. Ame, Ama, the mother, right? The milk and honey, the beetle, right? I understand the night, you understand the West End. Talking about the West Indies, the West ending of the sun's journey home to die in the Indies. That's why they called Indians. The Indies is where the sun ends, the ending of the day. The Indies, the foreign extremity, the ending, the perfect whole, the Omega. This is why you see the horseshoe, the W, the West, the ending. As you see packages coming in, sea lions out here. It's not gonna come back up either. Sea lions out here, man. You understand the seal and the sea lion and the Navy SEAL, right? Gotta understand the West Coast and submarines and the Navy and the fleets, right? And the islands and all the ancient stories of Mu, right? The mother. Submerge. Yes, mythologies of the eruption of a giant volcano, right, that form life elements. So a lot of these things are ways that we explain. We made things a religion, things were sciences and teachings and principles of law and order, of how to measure not to rule in a sense to rule over someone, but to measure, to make sure the balance, justice, law, order, that's why you see the court system with they're supposed to embody that. As we know, the court system definitely has its own agenda and propaganda and systematic process of what they call crime pays. So make us criminal, forces you to be in the minor status. You have to conform, you gotta get you a tax ID number, and do your little tax write-offs and and if you really good, you get people to work for you. You get a real good check from master. So it's all about data and intel now. Because everything you're doing is so robotic, it's so on the clockwork, that it can't be measured for profit. Trends, they can predict what your trends are going to be. Clockwork. Because systematic people align with nature. That's why niggas is going to celebrate the holidays no matter what forever, because there's an attraction that happens in nature around the specific days that they establish these holidays for a reason. So nature, look at it. Look at the earth. This shit. Well, it's dying. Can't even get real fruit no more. You can't even get real fish no more.